punchline first, because I haven't got very long. I'm looking at the drivers of voting intentions from research we've done over the years. Well, lots of people have done, from Dave Butler onwards, about what causes people to vote the way they do. And the story is the key drivers have not changed very much over a year, and it doesn't look as if they're going to change much between now and May 7th, and so we end up with this hung parliament. So that's kind of the punchline. This is actually just a reproduction of graphs that Chris and Steve and others have put up. It's voting intentions from surveys we've done at Essex. These are internet-based surveys done every month, so you're looking at monthly data from January of last year through to March, to last month. And the story is, for the two major parties, they're kind of neck and neck. Within the margins of statistical error, there's not much difference. And you can see UKIP there and Lib Dems, of course the Greens are lower down. So, what drives the votes? Looking at four things. Firstly, a sort of overall judgment that people make about what is the government doing, how's it doing. And that's captured with a very simple question that lots of people ask, and we do too. Do you approve or disapprove of government's record? Secondly, partisanship. This is the brand loyalty that lots of people have for parties, grown much weaker over time. Some people don't have it at all, but if you do have it, brand loyalty or partisanship, party identification as it's called in the jargon, that will significantly influence your vote. Leadership, much discussed in recent months, especially the relationship between Cameron's performance and Ed Miliband. That's very important. Comes out big in the statistical model. The economy, clearly very important. The most salient issue at the moment. Are people optimistic or pessimistic about what's going to happen? And in particular, there's a difference between judgments made about the national economy and judgments people make about their own personal circumstances. They used to be closely associated with each other and they've diverged in a very interesting way. And then finally, other issues, and the two really big ones, additional issues, are the immigration and the NHS. So I'm going to gallop through this quickly because there's too many of these slides really. That's the government's record to date. The black line, I disapprove. The answer that people give is, I disapprove of government's record. The blue line is, I approve, and then there's some don't knows. Now, that shows that, just over 55%, well, just over half disapprove, about a third approve, and hence the government gets about a third of the vote. Interesting point that you should look at, though, is it's not changed very much over a year. Not really. Slight movement, but nothing very dramatic. Partisanship or brand loyalty. That's asked when we ask questions about, do you think of yourself as a party supporter, and if so, what? And so on. Labour and Conservatives neck and neck with each other. And that's been true. Well, Labour's been slightly ahead last year, but not by very much. And right now, at any rate, they're very close. One interesting thing is UKIP's coming up here a little bit. That means it's acquiring people who are no longer just protest UKIPers, protest kippers. They are now identifying with the party and feel a loyalty towards it. So it's getting established in a way that it wasn't several years ago. And as you can see, it's pretty close to the Lib Dems in partisanship. So it's picked that up. Likeability scores on leadership. Now, a lot of the polls have used who's the best Prime Minister question to answer the issue of who's doing best, Cameron or Miliband. This is not a good question because there's a bias in favour of whoever is the Prime Minister. And this has been true in the past. So we asked something different. We asked people to give a score out of 10, a likability score for leaders. And it turns out that some analysis shows this is a good predictor of other leadership traits that are regarded as desirable, such as honesty, trustworthiness, how you're in touch with people. So likability, a simple likability score out of 10, where 0 means you really dislike them, 10 means you really like them, tells us an awful lot. What this chart shows, similarly as earlier, not much movement, But all of the party leaders score less than 5, so none of them are terribly liked overall on average. And Cameron is ahead of Miliband, that's certainly true, but it's only by about half a point on a scale of 10. So the difference between Miliband and Cameron has been greatly exaggerated and will be if you use this who is the best Prime Minister question. Okay. Percentage thinking the government has done well on the 3 most important issues, the 3 most salient issues, which, as I said, are the economy, the NHS, and the immigration. The basic story is here that on the economy, the government does well. But it's not changed very much, but it does well. On the NHS, it doesn't do very well at all, about 15% or so. And on the immigration, it does awfully, abysmally. So if you get brownie points for improving on the economy, and there's not much evidence that that's true, but if you did, it would be offset a little bit by the scores on the NHS and above all immigration. Changes in issue saliency for the most 3 important issues. This is crucial because if the issue saliency changes, then the party that's seen as best at this is going to do better. And again, you see, I mean, what this shows really is the economy is a bit more salient last year, beginning of last year, than now. It's fallen a bit, but it's not any great shakes. But you could argue that the economy, while still the most important issue, has gone off the boil a little bit. The issue of immigration has not changed at all. It's quite salient, very salient, there we are. The one that appears to be climbing, and that is a statistically significant difference, is the NHS. Over time, people are getting more worried about this. It's a higher profile in terms of answering the question about what's the most important issues than it used to be a year or so ago. And that, of course, is potentially a problem for the Conservatives. Yeah. Finally, I mentioned earlier about the difference between optimism about the national economy and personal circumstances, and there's a big gap. It used to be very similar. Big gap now. You see that on the national economy, this is the percentage of people who think that things have got better. And it's climbed a little bit, just lately, compared with last year. But it's still under 50%, but that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Here's the percentage of people who think their personal finances are better. That's climbing just a little bit in the last month or so. But you can see the gap between them. And it's the personal factor that matters more than the national factor. It's how I'm doing, as opposed to how the country's doing when it comes to predicting the vote. So a party that wants to do well needs to make that one climb. Maybe a little bit of evidence of it, but it's not exactly much. And one more final thing I put in is the percentage of people who think that no party, none of them, can manage the economy well. And you can see there's about a third who think that. It's fallen a little bit, but not much. A lot of people think that, you know, they can't do it anyway, and that's a problem. So, very quickly, about a third approve and just over half disapprove of government's record. Labour and Conservatives about the same on partisanship as are Lib Dems and UKIP. Leaders are relatively unpopular, but certainly Cameron is more popular than Miliband. Clegg is improving a bit. Farage is losing ground. I didn't mention that, but you can see it. The economy is the most salient issue, but it's lost a bit of its shine, and the NHS has grown in importance. The government does well on the economy, not very well on the NHS, and abysmally on immigration. Optimism has improved, but it's much better at national level than it is at the personal level. So there's the punchline again. The Conservatives and Labour are neck and neck. It's neither of them that has a decisive advantage over the other on the key drivers of voting intentions. There's other drivers as well, but these are the main ones.
Thank you very much, Paul.